Hi, I'm Mark Samples, and in this course, I'm going to teach you how to prepare a university paper. Over the course of your academic career, you will produce many different papers. You might produce research papers, opinion papers, or persuasive papers. And while each of these types of papers has a different approach to content, they all share a certain set of expected guidelines and characteristics that your instructors are going to expect you to know and to follow. Not knowing these guidelines can hurt you. You could lose points on an assignment, or you could even fail the assignment or even fail the course and have a permanent blemish on your academic record. I'm talking about plagiarism here. So in this course, in the short videos that follow, I'm going to teach you some of the basic characteristics of a university paper. There will be three main sections to this mini course. Section 1 will cover formatting a university paper. We'll cover all the basics. Section 2, we will talk about using formal university style. Writing in a university paper is not like writing in a text message or an email, and I'll teach you some of the differences and some of the expectations there. In Section 3, we'll talk about the basics of using research and citation methods. And this one is very important because it means that you will be able to safeguard your work against plagiarism and put your best work forward as a scholar. So at the end of this course, you're going to know the foundational elements of how to create a university research paper, and you will use this knowledge and these skills again and again throughout your academic career. In this section, I want to talk to you about formatting your university paper. Let's start with the basics. Most university research papers, or papers in general, will have the following characteristics. Number one, they should be typed on a word processor, such as Microsoft Word. They should be double-spaced. They should have 1-inch margins all the way around. Page numbers should be present. I prefer them in the bottom center. The font should be Times New Roman, and it should be 12 point. The ink should be black, and research papers or larger papers should have a title page. Now, a more full explanation of the requirements of formatting a paper follow particular styles. The style that I prefer and my discipline prefers, the discipline of musicology and music history, is the Turabian or Chicago style. The Turabian style was codified by Kate L. Turabian in her book, A Manual for Writers of Research Papers, Theses, and Dissertations, which was first published in 1937 and has had many editions since. So it is a tried and true series of guidelines for students just like yourself who want to write clear research papers. You can find all of the resources that I will show you on the following slides if you go to your favorite web browser and you search Turabian Help and Tools. It will take you to the Help and Tools page, and you can download the PDFs that I'm going to show you in just a moment. So let's take a look at what formatting looks like in practice. Here we have two pages. We have a title page on the left, and we have a regular page 1 on the right. The title page, if you'll notice, only the black lettering, the black ink portion is what would end up in the final paper. Everything else is annotations. And again, I found this from the Turabian Help and Tools webpage. You want to space your title page as shown here. The title should be down from the top, about 1/3 down from the top. Then you have a space in between, followed by course information below. Now you should always pay attention to the specific information that your instructor would like you to include, but every paper that you turn in should have a title. It should be a descriptive title, and it should have course information. This way your instructor knows who this paper came from. Following that, you have a regular first page. This page has an introduction, but you will not always have a header such as that. You might just begin at the top of the page with text. Notice the margins first. The margins are 1 inch all the way around. The body text is indented 1/2 inch. And then you'll notice if you do have headings, that is an introduction heading, or subheadings, such as the second heading here from "Ah" to "Strings," you should format those according to Turabian style, and you can find that online. Here's another example of a body text page on the left. This shows you another page of regular text with the 1/2 inch indent, and it also demonstrates an extended block quote style. You can see that it is offset by a 1/2 inch and it is single space. You want to make sure you only put one space between sentences and do that consistently. On the right-hand side, you have an example of a figure. And this could be an image, it could be a table, it could be a chart, it could be a musical example, but all tables need to have labels underneath. And you can see an example of that. It says figure 3.1, and then it has some descriptive text that you can see there. Now, these examples of how to format your paper are good starts, but we also want to see how we do that exactly in Microsoft Word, and that's what I'm going to do in the next short video. I'm going to give you a demo of how to format your paper in Microsoft Word. In this video, I want to give you a demonstration of how you might change your document from within Microsoft Word to match the expected formatting guidelines of a university paper. I recommend using Word, although you might use other word processors if you are more familiar with them and comfortable with them. The end result must be the same in that it follows the following guidelines. So let's take a look at this paper, and you will notice that there are a number of things wrong as we scroll through here. The first thing that I notice is that on this title page, I see that it is centered here, yet it looks a bit off-center to me. And I think what's going on here is that I need to reset the margins. And so in Microsoft Word, if I click on the Layout tab in the ribbon and I click on Margins, it has a preset here that gives me 1 inches all around. That would work. I could also click on this Expand Page Setup dialog box, and I can see that the left margin is 1.5 inches, and I want that to be 1 inch. You can see now that the title is looking correct, and those margins are looking just as they should. And so I would type in the title of my paper here. I would include the course information at this point, and then I would move on. Notice that there is no page number on the first page. Now here's the first page of my text, and there are a couple things wrong here. First, I notice that the font is not Times New Roman. So we want to make sure that we change that and update it to be Times New Roman. And so I'll select all of this, go up to so I'm in the Home tab, select the font drop-down box, type in Times New Roman. Once I've found that one, I will select Times New Roman, and we can see that that is correct. Now beware at this point in Microsoft Word, when you change the font in one section, it doesn't necessarily change the font everywhere else. And so you'll notice that in my footnotes here, I also have the incorrect font. This is not Times New Roman. And so I would like to go here, and now the Times New Roman is in my recently used fonts. I will select that and make sure it is in Times New Roman. Now, there's one other thing up here, which is in the header, and it's also not in the right font. But instead of changing this to Times New Roman, I'm actually going to delete it because I know in Turabian Style, this does not call for any header information. So I'm going to delete that header, and that will help us to match the style. Now there's one other thing I need to do here before we're done, and that is to add an indent of the first line. So I'm going to select all of the text on this page, and there are a couple ways to do this. One, you can push tab at the beginning of every paragraph. However, there is a way to do it automatically, And in Word, if you go into the View tab in the ribbon and you select the ruler view so that you can see the ruler here, this will allow you to indent. If you grab this top arrow here, indent the first line, and that will only indent the first line. It's called a first line indent. So if I want to apply that to to all of the text, I would just make sure that that is all the way over at 1/2 inch exactly. Now, there are more advanced ways to do this. You can set paragraph styles, but for most research papers, at least up to theses and dissertations, pages of 5, 6, maybe 10 pages, doing it this way should be sufficient. So, once you understand in Word how to format your document, you are well on your way to creating a university paper that meets expectations and that will shine a light on your content, not on your formatting. So in the next section, in section 2, I'm going to talk to you about using formal university style. In this section, we're going to learn a little bit about using formal university style in our writing. Now, whether we realize it or not, we are writing constantly. We're writing all the time. And there are different kinds of writing that we're faced with every day. Most forms of writing are informal. This is the kind of writing that we are employing when we're texting or when we are using social media such as Twitter or Facebook, or even most emails are informal in style. But there's also a formal writing style that you should be expected to know and employ when appropriate. Formal writing styles are for things like professional reports, for research papers, and for published works. And the goals of formal university style are the following: precision and clarity. Precision and clarity. What does this mean? Well, first, it means that your writing is grammatically perfect and the spelling of your writing is also perfect. That way, your grammar and your spelling doesn't get in the way of your message. It also means that you use specialized terminology when appropriate, using terms such as tempo, rubato, and so forth. It also means to avoid slang and informal phrases in your writing. And so you don't want to say that a piece of music is super sweet. Instead, you want to say something more precise and formal than that. You also want to avoid contractions. That is, don't, say do not. Don't say can't, say cannot. You want to write out all of the contractions, and in this way, conform to that more formal style. It also means that you want to remove clutter. Oftentimes in informal writing, we clutter things up with extra words that don't necessarily need to be there. And I think it was Descartes who a couple hundred years ago said in a letter, he apologized to the person that he was writing to, saying, "My apologies that I have written you a long letter. I did not have time to write a short one." And that's because it's much more difficult to cut out all the clutter and just get to the most important thing that you want to communicate. And finally, to keep in mind, you want to always write in complete sentences. And this means always having a subject and a verb and not having dependent clauses only in a sentence. You always want to make sure there is a complete sentence. A couple further guidelines to keep in mind. Now, in the past, formal university style had always been in the third person. So you would say, one must consider when one is viewing the tradition of orchestral conducting in Mozart's day, and it's that one, that's the third person one, instead of saying, in this paper, I am going to, that's the first person. Now, I will tell you that the first person is actually quite fine in many cases today. Even in dissertations and academic books, scholars are using the first person. However, you always must be careful when using this, not to overuse it, and you always want to check with your instructor to make sure that using the first person I is allowed. Formal university style also focuses on a clearly delimited topic or thesis. That is, it does not diverge from that topic. And a good check here is ask yourself after you've written a draft, is every paragraph connecting up to a central thesis or idea? And by the way, you should make sure that you have a central thesis or idea that's stated at the beginning of the paper. Now, sometimes students, when using formal academic style, make a mistake. And I want to correct that mistake with this guideline. Use simple and precise words instead of multi-syllable words. So the mistake is this. Sometimes students feel like if they can just put in enough multisyllabic words, then it will make their writing sound more intelligent. But actually the reverse happens. When you have a very wordy sentence that has a bunch of abstract ideas in it, it actually is an indication of a student writer, not a professional or an academic writer. So what you want to do is choose the most simple yet the most precise word possible. This also means formal academic style. It does not mean to write in a very delicate way. You can still write with great force. It just means that you have to back up your writing and your opinions with evidence. Finally, in general, you should avoid absolutes. And so if you're talking about a figure in history, avoid saying this figure is the best composer or is the best violinist, because that is a very difficult thing to prove. You also might want to stay away from indicating that something is the first or the most famous, unless you have unequivocally established that that is true, either through your research or through your own findings. And these are some guidelines for formal university style. If you need further assistance with this, you need to talk with your instructor or go to the Writing Center for more help. In this section, we're going to learn about managing research and citations. We're only going to cover the basics in this short video. Please know that there are many further skills and best practices that you are going to need to learn and manage, but this will give you a solid foundation to get started. The first thing you're going to need to know is what citation style is required for your paper. In my courses, which are in music history and musicology, the standard style is Chicago Turabian Style. But in other courses, you might use other styles such as MLA or APA styles. And each style has distinct practices and different requirements. And you just need to know and find out what the rules are for each one. I would recommend doing some good searching online. There are wonderful guidelines that give you introductions to each of these styles with very deep resources for you to find. Now, when you're doing research, you're also following the standards of scholarship. And what does that mean? Well, scholarship is a practice, it's a habit, it's a mode of inquiry and a mode of communication of findings. And all scholars are part of what is called the great conversation. That is, scholarship interacting with, debating with, affirming, or discounting others and others' scholarship. And when you write a paper as a scholar, you participate in that great conversation. And a conversation takes, well, conversation. That means you have to interact with the voices of other scholars through their writing and through other modes of scholarship. Therefore, it is ethically required of you to cite ideas drawn from others. This is how you become a part and a good participant in this great conversation. Failure to do this, as you probably know, is called plagiarism. Plagiarism is a very serious offense, and it can lead to serious penalty, including failing an assignment, or even something far more serious and having university level penalties. I'm going to cover the Turabian style, the Notes-Bibliography style, since that's the style that's used in my papers. However, Please remember that if your course and your instructor requires a different style, you're going to need to find the differences. So in the Turabian style, citations are placed in footnotes. And you can include one source in a footnote. You can also include multiple sources in a single footnote. So if you want to cite two particular sources, that is an article and a book, you only need one footnote for both of those, and you would separate the citations by a semicolon. When you are citing, you want to make sure you always follow this order. Close the sentence with punctuation. If the sentence also closes a quotation, you want to follow with quotation marks, and then give the citation number in superscript. That is, you always want the punctuation on the inside. If there are quotations, then you would add the quotations and then follow that with the citation number. Citation number always goes on the outside, punctuation always goes on the inside. Let's take a look at this example document, again from the Turabian Help and Tools website. Here you can see a bibliography page. You can see this would follow the body of the paper, and it includes all sources cited in the paper. It's alphabetical in order, and notice that it has what is called a hanging indent. That is, not the first line is indented, but the second line is always indented. Please note, and I will not go into the details here, please note the specifics of formatting. Last name first, then first name. There are periods throughout, and titles of books, titles of journals are italicized. What does a footnote look like? Here's an example of a footnote. When you are typing in your text and you insert a footnote, as you can see at the bottom of this page, footnote 24, and then you look down underneath the page, there is the corresponding footnote with the citation. Note the differences in formatting here. That is, there is a first line indent in footnote style, and it follows first name, then last name, and it is followed by many commas instead of lots of periods. So this is something to get very up close and personal with. That is the stylistic differences between footnotes and endnotes. And like I said, I would recommend doing some searching to find some good guidelines for the Turabian style or for whatever style you are using. And now what I want to do is I want to actually show you, do a demonstration in Microsoft Word of how to insert a footnote. In this session, I want to demonstrate for you how to insert a footnote and how to manage your bibliography inside of Microsoft Word. So I have here an example paper, and I want to insert the very first footnote. And the way I do this is I place my cursor after whatever content needs to be cited. And then in Microsoft Word, if I go to the References pane, sometimes you can go to the Insert pane on previous editions of Microsoft Word, and you want to click on Insert Footnote. And when you insert the footnote, it has an auto feature that inserts footnotes and keeps them in the correct order and with the correct formatting. And so you can see that this was placed as a 1, and now my cursor is down here at the footnote, and I will copy in my footnote here. You'll notice that the footnote is double spaced, and I want to make sure it's single spaced, so I'll select that. Go to Home, Spacing, single spacing, and now this is looking much better. Please note that with footnotes, you want them to have a first line indent, so you want to make sure that is at a 1/2 inch, and all footnotes are in that style. Now, if we look at this second footnote here, we can see that the style is first name, last name, comma, followed by the title in italics, and then some information about the publisher and the year following in parentheses, and then always a page number from which the information was taken. Notice, please, that you don't only have to put the citation, and this is different from other styles such as MLA and APA. It's very natural in a footnote to add commentary about the citation or about the point, to give sub-commentary about the point that you're making. So that can follow in just normal text in that way. A couple other things to notice about citations and footnotes in particular is that when you repeat a source, so footnote number 3 is Daniel Lepori, if the next footnote is from the very same source, from this same book here, I would put ibid, I-B-I-D, with a period and a comma. What that means is it's an abbreviation of Latin for ibidem, which means the same. And so you would put ibid and the page number. If it's the very same page number, you would just put ibid. Now, I also want to show you a couple things about the bibliography page. The bibliography page should start on a new page. Notice that it does not start on the previous page. It starts on a new page, and I'll show you a little trick there. If I had this on the previous page, like this, and I want to push it to the next page, I could press Enter a lot of times, or I can have a shortcut which is inserting a page break. And inserting a page break is on the Insert pane, and you can see here it says Insert Page Break. I want to click on that. That will take me directly to the next page. Here I want to make sure that this is centered, and I want one space after that header. Now, bibliography, you can see that this is left align with a hanging indent for a second line. You'll also notice that this is in single spacing. So how do I make that hanging indent? I use the ruler here, just as with the other types of indents. And with Microsoft Word, the way you do that is you have to pull it out first, all the way, and then just grab this top caret and pull it to the left, and there you have a hanging indent. A good way to do this is to select all of the text and then make that hanging indent as follows. That way you can always have a hanging indent. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot more to citations and research. This is just a foundation of some of these basic skills. You're going to want to become an expert in research and citations as you go through your academic career formatting these papers. And I hope in these short lessons you have gotten an introduction and gotten a plan for how to approach formatting and preparing your research papers. In doing so, you are going to allow your own voice to shine so that your instructor can judge you on the content of your ideas rather than the quality of your formatting. And this is something that we should all aspire to in making our communications more clear, especially in formal university situations.